This is CBC Here and Now.
Jess Crosbie has stepped down and the PC party has a new interim leader. Coming up on Here and Now.
Winter is holding strong through parts of Labrador, but we're going to see a little bit more spring-like weather for the island.
One of the cases we recently reported was a COVID variant, the variant that was first discovered in South Africa, B1351. We're confident there was no onward transmission and no danger to public safety.
A new virus variant has been found in the province.
And with vaccines set to expire, more people in the western and eastern region will soon be rolling up their sleeves. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We start tonight with provincial politics. Chess Crosbie has broken his silence, taking questions today for the first time since the election results were announced on Saturday. Crosbie's Windsor Lake District was one of two seats the PCs lost to Liberal candidates. Here and Now's Mark Quinn has more on Crosbie's decision to walk away.
Over the last couple of years, Chess Crosbie has become more comfortable in front of the cameras. He was gracious, you might even say charismatic, as he joked with reporters today.
Okay, they're done with me now.
Crosbie is stepping down after leading the party through two general elections. In 2019, there was jubilation as Liberals dropped from a majority to a minority government. But this year, the Liberals won back the majority they were seeking.
We kept a shiny new Liberal leader who had the strong wind of COVID popularity at his back to a thin majority.
Still, it wasn't enough for Crosbie to stay on as leader. A difficult decision he held back for a few days.
You know, you're closing a chapter in something you've tried to achieve, but I think it was an obvious decision, and I do feel that we put together an election campaign that we can hold our heads high and be proud of.
For now, MHA David Brazel will serve as the party's interim leader, but Brazel won't be leading the party into the next election.
My energy and my talents are better fit right now for the next period of time, helping the PC party get to the next level and select the next Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador.
MHA Barry Pettin will be the opposition House leader for the Progressive Conservatives. Pettin says it's unlikely he'll seek the party's leader position.
Right now is no interest, so that was that, right? So everything changed, but I can't see it, right now.
New interim leader David Brazel says he may be there for a year or two until the party chooses a new leader. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, there's one new case of COVID to tell you about in Newfoundland and Labrador today. It's a man in his 40s in the eastern region. The cause is still under investigation. There were two recoveries, though, today, leaving now just 3 active cases. There we see, the details on that case, man in the eastern region. Well, the Chief Medical Officer of Health confirmed today that we've seen the first case of the COVID variant B1351. Now, that's the strain that was first discovered in South Africa. It's more contagious. But she said in this case, the person came back from traveling and isolated, so there was no chance for it to spread.
They isolated quite appropriately and had no further contacts, so that's all really good. But that's just shows the importance of following the public health measures and making sure that quarantine rules are followed.
So how are our vaccinations progressing? Well, as of Monday, there were 67,000 doses handed out. The health minister said they're on track, or at least very close, to reach their latest goal, which is 80,000 doses by the end of this Easter weekend.
We will be, I think, somewhere within a 600 to 1,000 margin by the 4th. So I'm hoping it will be 80,000, but I won't be surprised if it was 79 and change.
Well, some international passengers on a diverted flight spent the night in St. John's last night. An Air France flight was about halfway across the Atlantic yesterday, heading to the Caribbean from Paris when there was a medical emergency on board. The plane carrying 120 passengers and 10 crew members landed just before 4:30 in the afternoon. Now, the passengers stayed at the Delta Hotel overnight. They were all screened for COVID-19 by both provincial and federal agents at the airport and weren't allowed to leave their hotel rooms as part of self-isolation protocols, according to the Delta's manager. They returned to the airport this morning and are now back on their way.
Some clear skies today led to a pretty beautiful picture from space. We can see, if I zoom in, all of that swirling ice off the coast there. That has some icebergs in it. We're getting closer and closer to iceberg season. So I thought maybe let's take a look at what we're seeing right now. So this is from Environment Canada. They survey how many icebergs are just off the coast. Right now you can see lots off the coast of Labrador, but we're in this persistent southwest flow that's bringing these mild temperatures. So that's not really great for what we see as far as bumper icebergs, but it is looking like you'll see a few off the coast for sure over the next couple of days, but also some milder temperatures. So we do have a whole lot going on right now. An area of high pressure to the south, and a cold front and a warm front sweeping through Labrador. That is leading to some winter storm warnings through portions of Labrador, as well as a special weather statement. Winter certainly has its grips on Labrador, but I'll get into that when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a man accused of drunk driving causing death in a 2017 crash near Clarenville has been found guilty. Travis Firmage was convicted today following a trial that went on for months. Here Now's Garrett Berry was there for the verdict.
We've waited for 3.5 years, 36 court dates to finally get a guilty verdict.
For Calvin Tobin's family, today's ruling settles any question about who was responsible for the 2017 crash that claimed his life.
What this has done to me and my family, there's just no words. He meant everything to us. And if there was one thing that he could say today, he would tell us that he did not want to die.
For months, she sat and listened as defense lawyers argued that Calvin Tobin killed himself. They said Tobin was suicidal, that he grabbed a hold of the wheel and veered into oncoming traffic. Today, Judge Paul Noble rejected that. He said impartial witnesses provided no evidence of swerving or anything that would suggest there was a fight for the steering wheel. The judge also accepted blood evidence offered by the Crown, saying the science was sound. That evidence showed Firmage's blood alcohol concentration was more than twice the legal limit. It all led to a guilty verdict, bringing some closure for the family that Tobin left behind.
My dad is not here today to get the guilty verdict. He passed away a year ago from cancer, and all he wanted was a guilty verdict. And the defense kept putting it off and putting it off, using every tactic, putting our family through so much misery.
Calvin Tobin was 25 at the time of the crash. He died in the hospital, surrounded by his family, just hours later.
Mowing grass, bringing in wood, whatever someone needed, and he could do it, he did it, and never give it another thought. He lived every day to the fullest, and he often said to me and his pop that he lived every day like it was going to be his last. 'Cause you're not promised tomorrow.
There is still one more hearing in this case. Lawyers will make arguments on what type of sentence Firmage should receive later in April. Garrett Berry, CBC News, Clarenville.
CBC News has learned the deadline to reach a deal that would see the Terra Nova FPSO undergo a major refit has been extended another month. In January, the province signed a memorandum of understanding with 7 oil companies that own this vessel. Government is offering to hand over $175 million to Suncor and its partners and give the companies a break on royalties. But only if the companies agree to proceed with a costly overhaul of the vessel and other subsea equipment in the oil field, and to do much of the work, if possible, in this province. The refit would allow the FPSO to produce oil for at least another decade, preserving hundreds of jobs. But sources say the oil companies have not yet reached an agreement. The Terra Nova, which has not produced oil for over a year, is now tied up in bull arm.
Well, fish harvesters held a rally in Clarenville today. There's been growing concern that the federal government may shut down the cod fishery in 3 PS along the southern shore. The Fish, Food and Allied Workers Union organized a protest outside the office of MP Churence Rogers.
I'm a harvester from Placentia Bay in 3 PS. I've been fishing most all of my life. And cod has been a very important part of that fishery. And here now I see they're trying to take it away. But I definitely think this should be stopped. How did he know how much cod is out there when we never had a survey in 2020? And the harvesters that's on the water, they're the crowd they should listen to, not to the goddamn people that's sitting behind the desk and they don't know a cod from a sculpin.
How many communities are we going to sacrifice for the life of a seal? How many economic development opportunities are we going to sacrifice for the life of a seal? How much outmigration are we going to endure for the life of a seal?
We all need to manage the resource. It's important that we have it for generations to come. But we have to do it properly. A complete closure, I can't accept that. Not going to happen on my watch, as Ken said.
But you've come a long way to demonstrate how important the fishery is for you, their communities, and everybody on the south coast of the province. And if you can't feel the passion from talking to people here today, you do not have a pulse. I can certainly feel it, and it's going through everybody's veins here. It's been a part of their lives forever. And 3 PS, we're not accepting a closure of this fishery.
Well, in other news, 2 schools on the Avalon got a treat today. A special guest speaker there to deliver an out-of-this-world lesson, quite literally.
Yes, the Canadian Space Agency offered up one of its own for a question and answer session about the International Space Station. Here Now C's Hair reports.
A virtual visit with Canadian astronaut David St. Jacques. He spoke with students at Bacalao Collegiate in Old Perlican and Tricon Elementary in Bay de Verde. Not quite the long-distance call you might imagine. He's in Montreal, not exactly outer space. But St. Jacques' historic 204-day mission is the longest Canadian space mission to date. He circled the globe over 3,200 times on the International Space Station, covering a distance of nearly 140 million kilometers. A captive audience listened to his presentation, filled with stories about the food, spacewalks, and scientific experiments.
As a class in grade 6, they would like for you to describe what it was like when you came back to Earth.
Aha, good question. Oh my God, it was crushing. Then the return of gravity was crushing. I had no sense of balance. My body had forgotten about balance because I didn't need it for 6 months. All my blood was falling to my feet. So I was like white and ashen, and I fainted easily.
An eager audience asked questions of Canada's space hero, a wide range of topics covered, from getting sick to meteors to more practical problems like trips to the bathroom and what happens to your pee.
We don't just throw it in space. No. We put it into a recycling machine that turns it into drinking water. So all the water we drink is pee from yesterday. So maybe you think that's gross, yeah.
Just part of life in space, St. Jacques says. He was co-pilot on the Soviet rocket that took him to the space station in December of 2018. Of all the things he did on board, the best part the kids heard was the view.
In the day, you can see the oceans, the mountains. In the night, you can see the lights of the cities. the lightning storms. You can even see northern lights when you're lucky. Northern lights are amazing from space because they look like green sort of, ghosts floating over the Earth.
His advice for aspiring school-aged astronauts in the room, he told them to look after and respect their bodies and to set goals for themselves, even if they change over time and space. Cease Hare, CBC News, St. John's.
As a hunter, a seal hunter, a sickle we wait for the sea ice to form.
A look at how climate change is affecting people on Labrador's north coast. More from the series Thin Ice coming up after my forecast.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Bonus deadline is midnight Friday, April 9th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Here we are, the last day of March, and it was a beautiful day in St. John's. Nice and sunny, but pretty chilly.
Yeah, out like a lamb, which
in like a lion.
Came in like a lion and went out like a lamb. Yeah, it took forever for the temperatures to climb today. Not nearly as warm as I thought we would get, but that sunshine was certainly nice. Let's take a look at the temperatures across the board. 1 degree in St. John's, just reached that earlier this afternoon. 5 in Terra Nova, and then did reach 9 degrees in Corner Brook. And temperatures up above 0 for Labrador as well. Makovic, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Lab City all sitting above 0. Those temperatures are still pretty much sitting there. We've lost a degree in Corner Brook and a few degrees through Terra Nova, but overall still looking at a pretty nice evening with those winds have died down as well. We're looking at the strongest winds up through portions of Labrador, Happy Valley, Goose Bay, sustained winds near 33 kilometers per hour. And then we've got sustained winds out of the north for St. John's, which is why we're seeing those cooler temperatures at 19, and then into that southeast flow down for the south coast. So Rec House area, you're seeing winds about 43 kilometers per hour. So not a whole lot going on as far as weather tonight. We will see the potential for some drizzle developing along the southern portion of the island, the Burin Peninsula as well, but your temperatures are going to drop down below 0, so that will more than likely fall as freezing drizzle into the overnight hours. The snow or rain happening up through Labrador, Lab West, will change over to snow as we head into the early morning hours, and then we're going to see that potential as well for northern portions. Around central, there's a slight chance you'll see some flurries or light snow, but overall your temperatures, or you should be sitting under cloudy skies. 3 degrees tonight for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, that big drop in temperatures, and note that wind shift. Southerlies to northwesterlies for Lab West, and then down to -15 overnight tonight. And then we've got temperatures other than the southwest sitting a couple of degrees above. Most should fall below 0, a few degrees below 0 under partly cloudy skies as 0 overnight. So tomorrow we do have a winter storm warning in effect for Lab City all the way through to Nain and a little bit further south as well. Cartwright, you're out of this because it looks like everything that's going to fall north of that is going to fall as snow, and it's going to continue for most of, at least through the first half of the weekend into Saturday. Here's the story. So I'll just step out here. You can see the biggest amount of push of precipitation is going to move in through the day tomorrow. We'll see that snow get really heavy into the afternoon, and then Happy Valley, Goose Bay, you're right on that line. So you'll likely see snow to start, change over to freezing rain, and then eventually some rain into the afternoon and evening hours as that temperature climbs. And then southeast, you're under that warmer air as well. Not a whole lot happening for the island. It'll stay cloudy for the south coast, and you're going to see the potential for some drizzle again in the morning. And then as the day goes on, we'll see more cloud cover and the potential for drizzle or showers move in. Certainly, as you start to see some of that cloud cover in the east move onshore, so we'll certainly see some drizzle develop into the afternoon as well. As far as evening weather, as far as snowfall amounts go, this takes us through to tomorrow morning, so not a whole lot happening, 2 to maybe 5 centimeters at the most. Like I said, that push of snow will move in through the day tomorrow. This takes us through to Friday morning, already seeing areas of between 20 to 30 centimeters of snow, and then even more snow falling on Saturday. So as far as the forecast goes for tomorrow, we should hopefully reach those double digits. 10 degrees I have for St. John's. Obviously near the coast, it'll be significantly cooler. And then hopefully those double digits through central as well. Corner Brook, I have you at 14 degrees tomorrow. And then that onshore flow to the south, keeping those temperatures a little bit cooler. 7 degrees for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. And then north of that line, Lab City, you're sitting at -7. And then same for Nain at -7 through the afternoon. Now the other thing to note is as we head into the evening hours, that's when we're going to see some fog develop more than likely for the south coast, and that's again just as we get into that onshore flow. So people living on Labrador's north coast are speaking up about climate change, and with this year's unseasonably warm temperatures, many got an unfortunate glimpse at what future winters could look like.
Yes, it's a topic we've been following in a series called Thin Ice. Tonight, we introduce you to some of the people experiencing the effects of climate change firsthand.
Yeah, and as our Meg Roberts reports, having to adapt at such a fast pace takes a toll.
People living on Labrador's north coast say the stars used to be brighter. There wasn't fog like there is now. But fog rolls in with warm temperatures, and warm temperatures mean less sea ice. Communities are now quite literally living closer to the edge.
With the global warming, the climate changing, the sea edge is so much closer than it used to be.
There's a lot of concerns that I have for the rising water. The bay here is going to get higher. Some of our roads in our community are low. A lot of our cabins and stuff have been put by the water, so they're going to be flooding.
And it's not just rising water and infrastructure damage that leaders on the North Coast are concerned about. They're also worried about the cost of living going up without being able to travel on ice to hunt and collect firewood. And most importantly, saving a culture they've spent centuries to preserve.
Inuit are people of the ice and snow. We hunt seal, go fishing, ice fishing. We travel on the land years ago on dog team. The ice is like that, it's our highway, it's our way of getting from point A to point B. It refreshes you, it reminds you of who you are, where you came from. When we can't get out, it's a big deal.
What you have been used to since you were a child, being taught by your father or your mother, and most certainly you were able to tell what the weather would be like, And so at this day and age, the weather changes very quickly now. It is scary and stressful.
We can get blizzards just like that, and they could just go through the ice, and it's scary. Imagine what it's going to be like for our grandchildren by the time they come my age.
We're going to have to do things in a different kind of way, I guess. If we end up with no ice, that'll be drastic. Yeah, we're going to have to find different ways, I guess, to move around and at different times of the year.
But constantly adapting brings with it a heavy load. Ashley Consolo has been studying how climate change impacts all aspects of mental and emotional health.
A lot of people in the research that we were doing indicated that, being forced into adaptation became another mental health stressor. So how is it going to happen? What would it mean? A lot of worry for the future, a lot of anticipatory concern about what's coming next. How bad will it be? When will it shift? What will this mean? How will it affect our family? How will it affect our community? So when you're carrying that level of burden and anxiety and stress and trying to find new ways to do things that you've done for generations, I mean, that is definitely not only a stressor, but a huge sense of exhaustion and fatigue.
We are at risk of losing a lot. The biggest thing is the way of life that the Sikomuk, the Labrador Inuit, have lived for thousands of years. And when losing that, we are losing many things.
But adapting strategies have already started, so hopefully Inuit don't have to lose those traditions. Coming up later in this series, we'll share with you ways in which they're doing just that. Meg Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
They often say that once children reach a certain age with cerebral palsy, they level off, but I don't believe that.
In the next segment of This Is My Story, we revisit a determined athlete who is no stranger to CBC News. We check back in with Hayley Redmond coming up.
Welcome back. We have the last segment of the season to share with you tonight of our special Here and Now series, This Is My Story.
And it features a familiar face. We've spoken with Hayley Redmond many times over the years about all of the accessible sports she's been involved in and her connection to Easter seals.
Here she is speaking to CBC News when she was about 10 years old. She's talking about her love of sailing.
When you're getting aboard that boat, how do you feel?
Happy. And I feel like I can do anything that other children can do. I like being in control of the boat and feeling that I can do it, and also the wind in my face and the splashing of the water. And if I want to learn different ways that I can speed up the boat and slow it down and be able to control the wind and be able to see how much we can advance ourselves and maybe someday teach other kids with disabilities.
Well, that was Hayley when we spoke to her about 15 years ago.
And here's what life is like for her today.
I think I was 8 or 9, and my sisters were going to get new rollerblades, and I wanted some too, and my dad said, I really don't know how that's going to happen. So we found these rollerblades that went over my shoes, and I got in my walker and started rollerblading around the cul-de-sac where we live, and turned around to my dad and said, see, I can do it. Hi, my name is Hayley Redmond. I have cerebral palsy, and this is my story.
Hayley was early, so that was our little surprise. She was a preemie, so we weren't sure if there was going to be anything wrong until, I guess it was about 6, 7, 8 months. We started to notice that she was very stiff, and eventually it came to light that, yes, she did have CP.
I have spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, so that means all my 4 limbs are affected. My arms, when I was younger, were extremely tight, and so were my legs.
So then we had to figure out what we were going to do from there. We just had to keep going, and when you have other children, you do other things, and next thing you know, they're trying to do the same thing, and that's the best for them.
Basically just anything that the family did when I was younger, I just wanted to be involved in.
She's determined.
I always want to prove people wrong.
If you say no to Hayley, it means yes to her. She's going to do it.
In elementary school, it was hard because I always felt like I could do anything, and sometimes the teacher would say, no, that's not safe.
One of the times that sticks in my mind was when they wouldn't let her go outside. They said, no, that was not appropriate, and that she shouldn't do that. And we had to fight just to let her participate in recess outside with the other kids. The whole thing is every problem has a solution. Now you have to sit down and figure out what's the best way to get around the problem. And we would usually, between us all, we'd figure out something.
The Shriners in Montreal was a huge supporter in our journey to where I am today.
There was a friend of my parents had come to visit, and she was a nurse at the Shriners, and she mentioned to us, she said, you know what, Hayley would be a great candidate to come up, and I think we could do a lot for her.
When I turned 11, I think, we got the first baclofen pump, which is a pump right here in my side that brings a drug down through my spinal fluid, and it reduces my spasticity, and that's greatly improved my quality of life. And then in 2005, I had something called a hamstring release bone osteotomy, and that gave me the ability to do what I do today with the transfers and the standing, and basically making me more of a functional human in society. I first started swimming when I was 3, bowling when I was 8, horseback riding sailing, kayaking, canoeing. Oh, I started sledge hockey in 2003, parasailing. The wall climbing is just exhilarating, and the shooting is a good challenge. I snorkel now too. Swimming just has given me complete freedom.
The interesting part about being in the water, the buoyancy helped keep Hayley up. So then she discovered, I can walk in water without any assistance.
Like as I started to learn that I could walk in the water, then I started swimming. I would then just start jumping and eventually just learn the funk fall in my adapted way.
And so that was a great motivator. So she loved to get in the water. And to this day, you still enjoy swimming.
Out of all those sports, which one is your favorite?
I think it's a bocce. Bocce is a cross between lawn bowling and curling that was developed for athletes with cerebral palsy. Well, my first thought was, oh, this is like bowling, but I won't need my dad, so. It was a sport that I could be completely independent in, so I was all for that. You train on court about 12 hours a week, and then you also have to do physical training, so that could involve any of the other sports that I like to do, and also time with the physical trainer. In 2013, we just had our first Atlantic competition, and I got classified by the national coach. And in 2018, I went to Brazil for my first national competition.
Rising star.
As the rising star for the national team. I think even if I wasn't as successful at bocce as I am today, I would still love the sport and keep striving to do better. And my major dream would be to go to the Paralympics in 2024. Well, I actually am going to finish my degree in recreation. In the future, I hope to bring what I've learned throughout my life back to Easter Seals here and make an impact on people in this province. They often say that once children reach a certain age with cerebral palsy, they level off, but I don't believe that. I believe that if we keep working at things, just like anyone, if you decide to master a skill at 35 years old, well, you're going to master that skill. Everyone has challenges in life, and if these weren't my challenges, I'd have others.
If you were to think back to 8-year-old Hayley, who was just getting into those strap-on roller skates, what advice would you have for her, knowing what you know now?
Go for it. Don't let anyone tell you can't do it, because they're probably wrong.
After the break, COVID questions. I'll have some answers for you on when high school students might return to class and what travel could look like this summer. back to here and now. A lot of things are more back to normal, but this level 2 looks a little different than the last level 2.
Yes, we've been getting questions about why high school students aren't back to class. So Peter, what did officials tell you about why in-class instruction is still canceled, considering our case numbers are so low?
Yeah, now one thing to keep in mind, Carolyn, is during that last outbreak, there were 140 cases connected to Mount Pearl Senior High. So that made them change their approach when it comes to what they recommend for schools. Health officials have said in-person instruction can only happen if either you can maintain 2 meters of distance between people, or you're able to keep all the students together into one cohort for the whole day. That's not possible in most high schools across the province, so that's why they're in online learning right now. Officially, that will continue until the end of the Easter break, but the indication today from Dr. Fitzgerald was don't expect that situation to change. Here's how she explained why they've tightened those measures.
Eventually, most imported cases that we see are going to be related to a variant, and that's what we would expect with a virus that spreads more quickly than the original form. So we based our advice and our recommendations on that knowledge. And so right now we certainly are sticking by those recommendations. As we get more people vaccinated, as the rest of the country gets more people vaccinated, if we see, there's a significant impact of that on spread, if we see that case numbers are starting to go down, elsewhere, and if we feel that we're more comfortable with the epidemiology, then certainly we will be looking at that. We reassess things on a regular basis. We're always asking those questions.
Now, it's also possible school officials may find a way to still fall within those guidelines and maybe find a way to do physical distancing to allow some classes to resume, but we'll have to see, Carolyn, what they decide to do after the break.
Okay, so many tourism operators say that allowing travelers into the province this summer is crucial for their business to survive. Health officials won't put a time frame on it, but what are they saying about what it would take to open up the province to Canadians?
Well, Dr. Fitzgerald kind of has a few key criteria. Here's what she said.
We certainly would like to see a positive vaccines that have a positive effect on transmission, obviously. We'd want to see a good proportion of our population vaccinated as well as in the rest of the country. We'd certainly want to see reduction in rates elsewhere in the country, as well as maintaining our own rates at a low level. So all of those things really would be important for consideration when we make recommendations with regard to travel.
What it really comes down to is they want to see that there is a much lower risk that when people start traveling that they don't bring the virus in, or if they do bring it in, it's much less likely that it's able to spread here. Carolyn?
Thanks so much, Peter. Now we're going to shift from provincial COVID news to national news. Pfizer-BioNTech says in phase 3 trials, its COVID-19 vaccine has proven 100% effective in children aged 12 to 15. That's a better rate than in adults. The company plans to seek approval for use in time for the next school year. And according to one expert, young people will play a critical role in the months ahead.
About 15% of the population is under the age of 16. So if we're ever going to get to that herd immunity threshold, we are going to have to be able to vaccinate kids as well, because otherwise that will be a reservoir where the virus will survive and continue to propagate. So this is good news that we're going to start to eventually be able to vaccinate kids as well.
The Pfizer study was relatively small, a little over 2,200 young people. Half were given the Pfizer vaccine and the other half a placebo. Now, the company says none of the children who were fully vaccinated developed COVID, but there were 18 cases among the placebo group.
Canada is increasing its ability to produce vaccines here at home. A new facility to manufacture flu vaccines will be built in Toronto. It's a partnership with the French drug maker Sanofi Pasteur. Ottawa and the province of Ontario will contribute a little more than half the cost of the project.
Project of nearly $1 billion is one of the largest ever biomanufacturing investment that has been done in Canadian industry. And I'm pleased to announce, on behalf of the Government of Canada, that we are partnering with Sanofi with an investment of $415 million in this very strategic investment that will have an impact for generations to come.
Now, the company will spend $455 million and chip in $79 million in annual research funding. The project is expected to create more than 1,200 highly skilled jobs. The new facility will work on drug product formulations, fill and finish, and inspection of flu vaccines. It's expected to be up and running not until 2026.
To the United States now, where today the convenience store clerk who sold George Floyd a pack of cigarettes on the day he died testified in court. Now, that purchase set in motion the chain of events that left Floyd dead and led to the trial of a former Minneapolis police officer for murder and manslaughter. CBC's Susan Ormiston has the details.
For the first time today, the court was able to see inside Cup Foods, the Minneapolis store where George Floyd bought cigarettes with an alleged counterfeit $20 bill. The jury was able to see how Floyd walked around the store for at least 10 minutes. An employee, Christopher Martin, testified. Floyd appeared very friendly, just living his life, he said, but spoke slowly.
Communicating with him. Can you describe for the jurors generally what his demeanor was like? What was his condition like?
So when I had asked him if he played baseball, he went on to respond to that, but it kind of took him a little long to get to what he was trying to say, so it would appear that he was high.
When Floyd attempted to buy the cigarettes with what looked like a fake $20 bill, Chris Martin took it, but store policy said he would have to pay out of his own pocket if he accepted counterfeit bills. So Martin testified his manager told him to go out on the street and ask Floyd and a friend sitting in a car to come back into the store.
What did you see about him?
As I said earlier, he was just kind of shaking his head and putting his hands in the air, like kind of like, why is this happening to me? Like, I don't want this to happen, sort of thing.
They wouldn't come back in, and after several attempts, ultimately, the store called police. After what happened later on the street with the police, Chris Martin was asked how he felt.
Disbelief and guilt.
Okay. Why guilt?
If I would have just not taken the bill, this could have been avoided.
Prosecutors appear to be getting out in advance of defense on the issue of George Floyd and drugs. Also getting clarity around that $20 transaction, which led to the events ending in George Floyd's death. Prosecutors will continue to call witnesses who were at the scene on that day. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Minneapolis.
have an update on a story that you may have seen on our website. For nearly 3 years, a woman from this province has been looking to reunite a ring with its rightful owner.
Now, she found this ring on a beach in Prince Edward Island. And here's what it looks like. The gold ring was found on Cavendish Beach by Krista Stacy, who was on vacation with her fiancé. Engraved inside is a date, the name Missy, and the message XOXO Dad.
Well, the owner has been found. It's a woman in British Columbia who, get this, has never even been to PEI.
Yeah, Melissa Green thought her ring, which was made for her by her artist's dad, was gone for good. It's been missing for more than a decade.
My sister sent me a text, and it was a text to a link to CBC Radio, and I didn't understand why she was sending it to me, so I sat there, parked my vehicle, and read this news article about my ring. And I sat there and I just cried. I couldn't get out of my car.
Missy is the nickname her dad gave her. Green says the pair have grown closer in recent years, which makes the reunion with her ring even more meaningful now.
Green's not quite sure how the ring got to PEI, but it's now making its way to her in the mail. She says once COVID restrictions lift, she plans to visit the beach where it was found.
Well, it's going to be messy weather for the next couple of days, certainly up through portions of Labrador. And if you take a look at the future tracker, you see this pink line here. That is the risk of some freezing rain. So late Thursday night into the early part of Friday morning, we're going to see the potential for some pretty significant freezing rain for pretty much from Happy Valley, Goose Bay through to Rigolet. And then as we head into the afternoon on Saturday, those temperatures are going to warm up, and that should all change over to some rain. But that snow is going to continue for northern portions. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier, looking at upwards of 40 centimeters certainly possible. And we're in this stalled essentially pattern, so that means things are going to be pretty quiet for the island. We're likely going to see a little bit of cloud cover in play, and certainly the potential for some showers along the west coast. Then we get to a little bit of an onshore flow in the east, and that means some showers and drizzle certainly possible. Just want to take a look at the freezing rain potential just to give you a better idea of where that is. Again, this is Friday night, or rather Thursday night into the first half of Friday. Taking a look at the temperatures, they're going to be quite nice through portions of central as well as the west coast, hovering around 8 degrees in St. John's, and again with that potential for some drizzle developing into the evening hours as we get into that onshore flow. Up through Labrador, temperatures along that line are going to climb up to zero, which is why, or climb above zero, which is why we're going to see that transition over to rain and then stay as snow and eventually maybe some rain into the afternoon, or at least the first half of the day on Friday. Into Saturday, not a whole lot as far as movement of temperatures, and we're going to stay in this pattern at least through the day on Saturday. Again, with the drizzle developing later on in the day, same thing along the south coast, keeping your temperatures a little bit cooler. As we head into Sunday and Monday, those temperatures will be hovering around 5 or 6 degrees. And then we're looking at the potential for a few flurries, or rather showers in the mix. For central Newfoundland, similar, your temperatures will dip a little bit as well. Same thing for western Newfoundland, but your temperatures should be hovering in the teens. For eastern Labrador, you're looking at temperatures above zero right through the week. But again, unfortunately, staying a little bit unsettled Sunday. It looks like you'll see a few peaks of sun, and that won't happen until Monday for western Labrador. Wanted to share this photo. The sky is on fire in Twillingate. Thelma shared this with us. Thank you for that. And if you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Gorgeous. Well, here's something else that's gorgeous. We ran out of time to show you this video yesterday.
Yes, but we love cherry blossoms.
Yeah, just take a look at Washington, D.C.
Wow.
The city's famous cherry blossoms are hitting peak bloom earlier than expected this year. That's due to the well above average temperatures recently in the region.
The U.S. National Park Service announced on Sunday the trees have reached the final blooming stage. They even have a live camera feed focused on the trees if you want to check that out online.
That's gorgeous.
It is.
Very cool.
And that's all the time we have for you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Good night.
Good night.